Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head back to Hong Kong, and this is yet another of the beers that I brought back with me from my recent trip to Asia. I managed to get in a second visit to HK Brewcraft when I was passing through Hong Kong again on my way home to Scandinavia. So for this review we are going to go to Young Master once again, and we're having a taste of the Annie Haze, which is a New England IPA coming in at 5.5% ABV. And this was one that the guys at HK Brewcraft were determined that I had to try. But this is a collaboration that they've done with two New York breweries. Finback Brewing, who I've reviewed before, they did a collaboration with Brewski here in Sweden about a year ago now, I think it was, but it's my first encounter with Fifth Hammer. Finback are from Glendale, just a bit to the east of Manhattan. I think that might be Queens, and Fifth Hammer are from Long Island City. So really looking forward to trying this one. Another new brewery that I've never tried anything from, and two breweries that I know are pretty damn good, but Fifth Hammer do have a very, very good reputation from what I understand. So really looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Young Master and Finback Brewing. Hopefully I can add more to those in the near future, and it'll also take you to my future reviews that I'll hopefully be able to do from Fifth Hammer. I will go over to New York at some point in the next couple of years. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for both the Hong Kong beers that I've reviewed for you and the one for the American beers. This beer will appear in both of those since it's a hybrid, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Young Master first off then, since these guys are the home brewery. So Young Master was founded back in 2013 by Rohit Dugar, who is originally from New Delhi in India. So he moved from New York to Hong Kong in 2011, and he worked for Goldman Sachs at the time, but later he decided to leave his finance career behind and go on to found his own microbrewery. So he was joined at the brewery by German brewer Ulrich Altbar, who had an extensive experience of brewing in the Chinese mainland, and he was the first master brewer, but sadly he died in 2016. The current brew team is Edwin and Brian, though, who have worked for the brewery for a good number of years, and I believe both of them are Hong Kong natives, if I'm remembering correctly. But the first brewery was in Ap Lei Chau, and this facility had a 10 hectolitre brewhouse which acted as their main production facility until mid-2016. They opened up a new brewery in Wong, Chuk with a 40 hectolitre brewhouse from GA in Germany, as well as a larger barrel aging area, and also they had a fodder as well for producing sour beers, and this was the first fodder installed at any brewery in Asia, so quite an impressive feat. But they brew around 15,000 litres of beer per month at the moment, and they're the largest craft brewery by volume in Hong Kong, and also the most decorated brewery there as well. But as of June 2019, when I wrote the notes for this brewery, I'm reviewing this beer for you at the very start of August 2019, they've produced just over 100 different types of beer, and they currently employ around 20 different people. I've enjoyed the beers that I've had from these guys so far. One I really would recommend you check out is the Hak Mo Shung, which is their Imperial Stout, and they do lots of different versions of that, so hopefully I can review a few more of those for you, a few different versions the next time I go out to Hong Kong. But these guys are widely recognised as one of the the top breweries in Hong Kong, and they've been doing a lot to kind of get the craft beer scene established there, and it's a brewery, as I say, that you definitely want to check out. So yeah, have a go at some of the Young Master beers if you find yourself in Hong Kong. Hopefully the next time I go out there I can go and visit the brewery and see their tap room and stuff like that, and maybe do some interviews and stuff like that with people at the brewery. I think that would be very, very cool. But check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and keep up to date with all the latest goings on there. So anyway, on to the American side of things then. We'll start with Finback Brewing. So Finback Brewing, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in the Glendale area of New York, which is out to the east of Manhattan. I'm not sure if that counts as Queens. I'm not too good with my geography inside the US actually, but they were founded by Basil Lee, who's a former architect, and Kevin Stafford, who was a graphic artist, but they were both of them were also homebrewers from what I understand as well. But the company was founded back in 2011, although it took them a little bit of time to find a location, and they settled on their current brewery in 2013 and produced their first beers there in 2014, with a tap room opening up soon after. But apparently the name Finback comes from their location. They're located about a 30-minute walk from the nearest subway station because the two lines near them diverge. They move away from each other, and these guys are right in the middle, so they call themselves a beached whale basically. But originally they were going to be called Narwhal, but then Sierra Nevada came out with their famous Imperial Stout, and initially Sierra Nevada had actually agreed to withdraw the name of the beer after it had sold out, but they changed their minds after it won a gold medal, and then they felt it really wasn't a good idea to challenge that, and this all happened before the brewery opened their doors though, so it was a little bit of a kind of foregone conclusion, if you like. But over the last few years they've been gradually expanding, and they hope to eventually open up another facility sometime soon, and they do have a farm outside of the facility as well, where I believe they're growing hops and things like that to actually put in their beers. So pretty cool, and I think they're doing various other things there as well. But a brewery in the New York area that's very highly regarded. I know the craft beer scene has kind of expanded a hell of a lot there over the last couple of years, and from what I gather, Finback Brewing are one of the ones that you definitely want to check out. So when I make it over to New York, I should make it out to New York in 2020, I will try and make sure that I get hold of some of the Finback beers to review for you as well. It'd be cool to do some dedicated reviews to them, because I think this is my second or third collaboration review that I'm doing involving this brewery. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Finback just now. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on there. So anyway, on to Fifth Hammer Brewery, and like I said, this is my first encounter with this brewery. So Fifth Hammer Brewing, as I mentioned earlier, are based in Long Island City, and they were founded back in 2015 by Chris Kuzmi and David Scharfstein. So Chris is a professional saxophonist, and apparently he started out as a home brewer before becoming president of the New York Homebrewers Guild back in 2013. He'd also previously worked for Gun Hill Brewing and then the 508 Gastro Brewery as well, while David is a former lawyer. And apparently after 508 Brewing closed, David contacted Chris, having tried one of his brews, and said that he wanted to invest in a brewery. So together they signed a 10-year lease on a 5,000 square foot warehouse in Long Island City, and they created a tap room with a 15-barrel brewing system at a total cost of $1.2 million US, and they opened this up in the autumn of 2017, or the fall as the Americans would call it. But this was the fifth brewery to open up in Long Island City, and it's really regarded as a very good craft beer city these days actually. But the name Fifth Hammer apparently comes from a story about the Greek philosopher Pythagoras, of course the guy who did the hypotenuse theory with the triangles. Well, not theory, it's fact really, but he apparently came across 5 men hammering at a forge, and the sound of the hammer hitting the forge really was what stuck with him after that. But Chris apparently has a collection of over 300 vintage or antique hammers, and these have been used to create handles for taps in the bar as well. But they're very, very highly regarded. Of course, the New England IPA style is one of the ones that they're quite famed for, or revered for, I guess I should say. But a brewery, another brewery in the New York area that is very highly regarded, and one that I definitely will need to check out at some point in the future. So yeah, another New York brewery who I had not heard of before, but like I say, it's always cool to try new beers with different breweries involved and things like that. That's one of the great things about the craft beer world. You'll never run out of new beers to try. But yeah, that's all you need to know about Fifth Hammer Brewing for the moment, my first encounter with them. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, and again, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But enough about brewery histories, let's get on to actually tasting the beer then. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, this one is a 5.5% New England IPA, and apparently it's hopped with Citra and Mosaic. So we can get rid of the brewery notes now. I'll let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. We'll give the beer a little bit of a dry because it's been sweating in the Scandinavian tropical heat, which is something again I wouldn't have thought I would be saying very often. But yeah, you can see nicely presented this one, the Annie Haze. This artwork is a little bit different from what I've seen from Young Master before, but you can see there's the Brooklyn Bridge at the back of this one. I'm guessing this sort of shape here, if I remember right, this is kind of similar to the Finback, and then the little guy here is the Young Master, of course. But yeah, nicely presented beer there. You can see the 3 brewery symbols there. Young Master in the middle, Finback on my left, and Fifth Hammer on my right. So that'll be the opposite way around for you guys. But the thing you'll always get that's quite cool actually with with young masters, they always try and teach you some Chinese characters, and my girlfriend is Japanese, and I'll tell you something, Japanese, when it comes, it's actually quite easy to learn to speak and listen to, but learning to actually write that stuff properly is actually insane. And you know, Chinese, I just wouldn't even try with that. And of course in Hong Kong you've got Cantonese rather than Mandarin as well, so Chinese is mental. Let's just say that the Chinese language is absolutely crazy, and it's you know, it's something. One of the interesting things I also found in Hong Kong, actually, which I didn't expect, was I personally thought that the Macanese over in Macau were a little bit better at English than the Hong Kongers were. It wasn't as widely, English wasn't quite as widely spoken as you might think, with it being a former British colony trading post type thing. So there, and of course I think in recent times, since the handover in '97, they've been focusing a little bit more on teaching them Mandarin as well as Cantonese. So yeah, they've been trying to force them to learn Mandarin a little bit, from what I understand. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a nice hazy golden yellow colour, actually, more leaning towards the yellow side of things. You can see there's a nice degree of haze to this one. It's not the haziest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see you can see that level of haze there. There's about a quarter, a third finger of a frothy. I would say, I think that's a perfect white head rather than being quite creamy, but you can also see a few of those little bubbles heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks pretty damn nice, I have to say, but nothing overly surprising about this one in terms of its appearance when you consider that it's a New England IPA. And what I'm guessing with this one is when it's using Citron Mosaic and it's 5.5%, I think that this beer is intended just to be a kind of well done, sessionable beer. If I remember rightly, I don't think Young Master have done too many New England IPAs, so perhaps this collaboration, if you like, was to sort of teach the brewery a little bit about the New England IPAs, because they're already very good at the West Coast things and the Imperial Stouts and stuff like that, and quite often that's what collaborations are doing. They're sharing knowledge between breweries. And so yeah, but like I say, I had a very good experience with Young Master before. Finback are very good, and Fifth Hammer come with a very good reputation as well. But you know, it looks kind of as you would expect, so let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how you get on. Incidentally, when you open up this beer, you are going to smell a nice little bit of juicy fruit coming out of it, some tangerines from the Mosaic, and a little bit of a mango tropical fruit quality from the Citra that's in here. Oh yeah. Right, so let's focus on the malt base with this one then. So for me, you can definitely smell a little bit of the pale malty character in there, but the malt base of this beer really leans towards the creamy oaty side of things. Some of these beers, you'll get them, they can have a really quite pungent wheaty note to them. You can get a little bit of astringency from the wheat, but this one, to me, definitely comes across as being a little bit more kind of creamy and smooth. It's not quite like a milkshake IPA, but it's not too far off that. It almost tricks you into thinking it's a little bit lactosey and vanilla, sort of vanilla-y, if that's a word that you can use in English. But yeah, it's really nice, that one. The malt base is very, very kind of creamy smelling in this one. You do get a little bit of that white bready note underneath, but otherwise very creamy and very, very kind of juicy. There's a little bit of a biscuity sweetness in there as well, or cookies I guess I should say, since it's American breweries that are involved here. It reminds me a little bit of a kind of McVitie's Digestive, that sort of syrupy stuff that they use to hold the biscuity grains together. It really has a little bit of that, but a very, very sweet, kind of a sweet smelling creamy malt base in this beer. Very simple, but you know, it's kind of effective actually. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, that's quite interesting. So we'll say straight away, you can pick up a little bit of a floral quality in this beer, but you've actually got to take in the aroma quite deeply to get that out of it. There's a little bit of a grassy quality there as well, and I would say that's where the green side of this beer mostly leans towards. Normally, when you have a bit of mosaic in there, you'll get a little bit of earthiness in the aroma too, but I'm not picking too much of that out with this one. It really is a little bit more, it really just leans towards the grassy side of things, and I think that's probably just because of how kind of sweet and smooth the malt base comes across as being. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, there's a lovely juicy mango quality to this one. There's also a little bit of like, papayas and maybe a little bit of an apricot-y note. It really reminds me of these little yogurts that my mum used to put in my lunchbox when I was at school, the apricot munch bunch. It really has a little bit of that apricot-y papaya note in front of the mangoes. There's a nice juicy tangerine quality to this one as well, which I like, and that's from the Mosaic. The tropical side of this beer for me is coming from the Citra, but the orangey tangerine note is coming from the Mosaic. But the tangerines are that juicy that they almost come across as being, you know, it almost comes across as being a little bit tropical. So that's a kind of interesting point to make about this beer. But yeah, it really does smell very kind of milky and smooth. There's a little bit of a blueberry note coming out of this one. I've always found with Mosaic, you always just get this little hint of blueberry out of it, and I can just pick out this slight berryish note when at the front of the nose with this beer as well. So I mean, nothing particularly surprising about this beer. As I said, on the New England spectrum, if you like, it leans towards the more creamy side of things in terms of its aroma, but a nice smelling beer. This one, take a bit of time to enjoy that, but let's have a taste now and see how we get on. So this one is the Annie Haze, a New England IPA at 5% ABV, brewed at Young Master Ales in Hong Kong in collaboration with Finback from Glendale and Fifth Hammer, who are from Long Island City, both in New York State in America. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, Skål, Gambi, cheers. Oh yeah. Now, this is kind of what I was suspecting this beer would be. It's not doing anything kind of new or surprising really. It's just very well crafted. And you know, with New England IPAs, you can't really ask for much more than that, to be quite honest with you. Straight away with this one, you're going to get a nice bit of a pale malty quality, just blanket in the middle of your tongue. The further you go into the aftertaste, you will pick up a little bit of a slightly wheaty note out of this one, but that's quite minimal, to be honest with you. You can feel that there's a little bit of an oaty creaminess, and if you move further into the centre of your palate, you're going to get a little bit more of that oaty kind of creaminess there. The biscuity notes that I was picking up in the aroma, not really present in the malt base for me. This is a very straight up pale malt, wheat and oats. I don't really get any biscuity malt out of this one. Yeah, there is a teensy little bit of a sweetness in the middle of the palate, biscuit, like biscuity cookie, but it's very minimal. It's quite hard to detect actually. But the middle of your palate, you can feel it kind of dries out a little bit, and then the beer starts to lean a little bit more towards the pale malty side of things as well. But overall, the malt base is pretty light and pretty solid. This one strikes me as being more along the lines of a kind of session IPA rather than anything else, and I am drinking this quite fresh from what I understand too. I got this beer just a couple of days after it arrived at HK Brewcraft, so the malt base is pretty simple in this one. It's just kind of easy, kind of nice and easy going. But I really do like how this one goes together. You could absolutely just neck a few of these quite easily. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of that earthiness in there. As you come further forward, the earthiness just sits there, but the beer smooths out a little bit. You get a nice little bit of a floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate. It's almost a little touch spicy. And then as you go round the very front curve of the palate, some of that floral quality lingers there, but it does get a little bit more lighter and grassy in my mind. And then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, this one definitely has those kind of typical traits that you would expect of Citra and Mosaic. It's really quite nice. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of gas from this one for some reason. I don't quite know why. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, then, if you just go to the back of that oily bubble, as I was talking about, there's a teensy little bit of that darker grapefruity note in there, but that's very, 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 very small. If you come further forward from that, that's when you start to get the mangoes. A little bit further forward from that, you get a nice little bit of kind of You get a nice little bit of a sort of orangey, tangerine-y quality in there. You're also getting a little bit of a kind of papaya-y, apricot-y note, as I was talking about. And then on the very tip of your tongue, that's where that little bit of blueberry from the mosaic is coming out. And I really I always look for that when there's mosaic in a beer. I love that. Yeah. I think that fruity side of the beer is right there. The grapefruits that I was talking about, I'm not sure if that is quite there, to be honest with you. But yeah, mangoes at the back, juicier tangerines coming forward, a little bit of a sort of apricot-y kind of infusion in that, apricots, papayas type thing. And then the very tip of your tongue, just a little bit of a lighter kind of blueberry note there. And the aftertaste with this one, it's some of the pale malts and a little bit of the oaty quality that's lingering there. And it's the orangey tangerine notes and a little bit of the blueberry that's lingering there. Some of that tropical note is there, but mainly it's the oranges and the blueberries that are coming out from me. But overall, that's, in terms of flavour, that's a really nice just session IPA. I don't know if most session IPAs that you'll find in the States come in around 5%. We get ones here in Europe that are sort of around 4.5, 5%. So this one is a little bit heavier than that. But it's a really easy drinking, just, you know, Americans I think like to say crushable. You could neck a few of these very, very easily in my mind. So it's a good beer, that. Nothing surprising with the style, well crafted, and you know, sometimes that's just what you need actually. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would describe this beer as being, it's at the bottom end of mid-bodied, the bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. Mouthfeel leans, it's a balance between being wet and being smooth, this one. It's kind of like that. It's quite a light feeling New England IPA, this one. It's not the thickest one you're going to come across. Malt base, like I said, is very smooth. There's a little touch of sweetness to it. Hoppy bitterness, I think we're only talking about 25 IBUs with this beer at most, and there's a nice bit of juicy fruity quality to the beer as well. Actually, this beer does dry out a little bit the further you go into the palate too, but overall really nicely done, this one. Nothing surprised about the style, but just pretty well crafted, and it's cool to see this beer kind of spreading across the Hong Kong. Another beer that we could compare this to, incidentally, in the Hong Kong beer scene, it has the same sort of vibe to it as the Crazy Rich Lupulins that I tried from Carbon Brew, and I'm wondering, with the lighter mouthfeel that this beer has, it probably has something to do with just how humid Hong Kong is. I mean, the humidity there is ridiculous. That's the one bad thing about Hong Kong, is just how humid it is. So I'm wondering if the slightly lighter mouthfeel is intended in this one to, pardon me, just to reflect that, because I did find the same a little bit with the Crazy Rich Lupulins, but in terms of flavour, really, really good beer, this one. Just a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel compared to things you might get from other countries. But overall, a solid beer, and it was cool to review this one for you. Cool to see Young Master collaborating with other breweries, and cool to do another beer from Finback, and my first one from Fifth Hammer as well. So let's leave it at that then. As always, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the breweries involved here, and do give me some other Asian New England IPA suggestions. Do give me some other suggestions of other breweries that I should check out in the New York area as well, because I know there's a ton of them these days. There's, what is it, must be about 5,000 breweries over in the US now. But yeah, cool to encounter some more of them. Jeez. And I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. So until the next time, check out my social media, Slange just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This one is the Annie Haze, a 5.5% Session New England IPA from Young Master in Hong Kong, Finback, who are from Glendale in New York, and Fifth Hammer, who are from Long Island City on Long Island in New York. Until the next time, Slange just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slange, Skull, cheers, Gambly.